Hello, lovelies. How is it going? Today, we're diving into something that comes up often in my coaching sessions, and that is when you start avoiding physical touch with your partner because you're afraid they're going to get the quote unquote wrong idea and take it as an invitation for sex. Maybe you hesitate before cuddling up on the couch. Maybe you dodge their kiss, keep your hugs brief, or tense up when they get close. Not because you don't love them, not because you don't want connection, but because you feel like any touch could turn into an expectation. And that expectation, it feels overwhelming. It feels like pressure. If this sounds familiar, keep listening because today we're unpacking exactly why this happens. Why it's not actually about your partner always wanting sex, quote unquote, and most importantly, how to break free from this cycle so you can enjoy physical closeness again. So, first, let's talk about what's actually going on here, because this dynamic is incredibly common, especially in heterosexual relationships. There are a few reasons why this happens, and they tend to overlap. The biggest one is you and your partner experience desire differently, and you don't know it. In most couples where this plays out, the partner who avoids touch typically has responsive desire, while the partner who initiates touch more often has spontaneous desire. Now, for a quick refresher, spontaneous desire means turn on happens easily, without much stimulation. It's the case for most men. Responsive desire means you need the right stimulation and context before desire kicks in. And that's the case for most women. And here's where the misunderstanding happens. What starts as a casual display of affection for you, a hug, a kiss, a cuddle, quickly turns into arousal for them. Not necessarily because they had sex in mind all along, but because their turn on happens faster than yours. Maybe they kiss you and suddenly they feel aroused. Maybe they cuddle up next to you and oof, they're turned on. Maybe they didn't start out wanting sex, but the smallest touch was enough to get them there. For you, it feels like every touch is a step towards sex. So you start pulling away. And for them, it feels like every time they reach out, you shut them down. This can lead to a painful pattern. You start believing he only touches me when he wants sex. He's always after something. He doesn't care about how I feel. And they start feeling rejected. Why doesn't she want me? Why does she pull away when I touch her? I just wanted to hold her, but now I feel stupid for even trying. They feel rejected. You feel pressured. Neither of you is wrong. But without understanding this, it creates more and more distance. So before you start avoiding all physical contact to prevent giving them the wrong idea, quote unquote, I want you to pause and ask yourself, what if my partner isn't actually using me? What if they're just wired differently? What if this isn't about him being only affectionate when he wants sex, but rather a misunderstanding of how each of us experiences desire? Another common reason why this dynamic happens is your nervous system has learned to see touch as a trap. Now, even if you understand how desire works, you might still feel a nervous system reaction to physical touch. Maybe your body has learned over time that a kiss means I have to be ready. A hug means sex is on the table. So physical affection comes with an expectation. And when your nervous system starts interpreting touch as a demand, you will start avoiding it. Not because you don't love your partner, not because you don't want the affection, but because your body has learned that closeness isn't safe. And here's the problem. Physical affection is also what helps you feel connected, loved, and secure in your relationship. It's what creates the right context for you to eventually turn on. So the more you pull away, the more disconnected you feel. And the more disconnected you feel, the harder it is for you to get to a place of wanting sex. And suddenly your partner is only touching you when they want something because that's the only time you let them. See how this becomes a cycle? Your body needs to relearn that touch is safe, not something that comes with expectation or pressure, because stress and arousal are opposing systems. And if your body is bracing for impact every time your partner reaches for you, desire won't even stand a chance. The third reason for this dynamic is gendered expectations around sex. Many women, whether they realize it or not, feel responsible for managing their partner's sexual needs. Why? Because we've been conditioned to. We grow up hearing that men need sex and that women provide it. And we're taught that if we say no, we should feel guilty for leading them on or letting them down. Meanwhile, a lot of men have been taught that sex is how they express love and that affection is supposed to lead to sex. So when their partner wants non-sexual touch, they feel rejected or confused. So here's what happens. You start pulling away because you don't want to feel pressured. They start initiating less because they don't want to feel rejected. And this misunderstanding just keeps widening the gap between the two of you. This isn't just about you pulling away. Your partner may also need to unlearn the belief that affection should always escalate. The fourth reason behind this dynamic is the fear that if you start, you have to follow through. I kind of just touched upon this, but for many women, avoiding physical touch isn't about not wanting it. It's about not wanting to deal with the pressure that comes after. You might think, if I start, I have to finish. If I let them in, it's unfair to stop. If I say no once things get going, I'm leading them on. And so to avoid that pressure entirely, you pull away. But here's the truth. You're allowed to enjoy affection without it meaning you must go all the way. Physical touch should be something you get to experience and enjoy, not something that comes with a silent agreement. And if your partner is disappointed, that's okay. They're allowed to feel disappointed. You'd probably be disappointed too if you wanted something and were told it's not happening. But their disappointment is not your responsibility. And it's definitely not a reason to force yourself into doing something you don't want to do. Here, the lesson is to learn to be okay with your partner's negative emotions. They get to feel frustrated or disappointed, and you don't need to fix how they feel. Negative emotions are part of the 50-50 of life. Nothing has gone wrong here. And the last reason behind the dynamic of avoiding physical touch is because saying no feels either unsafe or uncomfortable. If saying no doesn't feel safe, whether it's because of your own conditioning or because your partner doesn't handle it well, then of course you'd rather avoid the situation completely. For many women, it comes down to three things. The first one is shame, feeling like you should want sex when they do, and that something is wrong with you if you don't. So you're ashamed to say no. But like I said, nothing is wrong with your expression of desire. Your desire is like an oven. It takes time to warm up, and your partner might be more like a microwave. Neither is wrong. They're just different. The second reason is guilt, worrying that rejecting sex will make your partner feel rejected and that it's your job to protect their feelings. Now, if that's you, I want you to go listen to episode 8 of the podcast where I do a deep dive on this. But long story short, it's not your responsibility to manage your partner's emotions around sex or anything else for that matter. And the third one is feeling like you owe them sex. If sex feels like something you give instead of something that you share, no wonder it feels like a chore. And here where it gets even trickier. If saying no has ever led to your partner acting hurt, frustrated, or resentful, your body has probably learned that setting a boundary comes with consequences. Let's be clear here. a partner's disappointment is not the same as pressure. They can feel bummed without trying to guilt you into sex. But if your partner reacts with frustration, resentment, guilt tripping, or anger, that's a completely different conversation. At the end of the day, you should feel completely safe expressing a no. And when you do, your partner wanting sex doesn't feel like a problem because you know you can simply say no without guilt or pressure, which means you no longer have to pull away just to protect yourself. Okay, now that we've seen the causes, how do we actually break this cycle? My first advice is to just talk about it. I know, easier said than done, but if you haven't actually had a conversation with your partner about how you feel, they cannot read your mind. Start the conversation. Just tell them, I avoid touch sometimes because I'm afraid it will turn into sex when I'm not ready yet. And see how the conversation unfolds. Get curious and ask them, how do they experience desire? How do they interpret your avoidance? What would help both of you feel more at ease? Just this conversation alone can change everything. And I did 3 episodes just on how to communicate your needs with your partner. Episodes 8, 9, and 10 of the podcast. So go listen to them if you apprehend the conversation and you feel you could use some tips there. My second advice is to bring back more casual, non-sexual touch. Your relationship needs physical affection that isn't leading anywhere. That means making out, hugging, cuddling, holding hands every day. I mean it. You should be making out every day with tongue and everything. Okay? Research shows that 6-second kisses can reignite connection, deepen your intimacy, and release oxytocin, the bonding hormone that helps foster closeness and trust in your relationship. This will do 2 things. It will take the pressure off so you can enjoy touch again, and it will help you rewire your nervous system to feel safe in physical closeness again. Because when you avoid touch altogether, it actually reinforces the idea that touch equals obligation. The third advice I have for you is to prioritize quality time together. I want you to think about the beginning of your relationship. Did you feel less pressured to have sex? Did physical affection feel more natural? Did you initiate sex more? Chances are back then you had more time for connection, dates, long conversations, shared laughter, moments of closeness that made intimacy feel organic. So when your partner showed affection and it led to sex, it didn't feel like pressure. It felt like a natural extension of the connection you were already sharing. But now, if your life revolves around kids, schedules, responsibilities, and stress, with little time carved out for just the two of you, then of course, physical affection suddenly feels like an obligation instead of something you genuinely want. That's why I highly recommend scheduling intentional time together, at least one weekly date, just the two of you, uninterrupted. And I get it, you're busy. But if you want this dynamic to change, you have to prioritize your intimacy, not just sex, but the moments that make sex feel like a natural, exciting, and wanted part of your relationship. And my last piece of advice for you today is come to coaching. I mean it. Most of the struggles in this dynamic aren't about sex itself. They're about socialization, internalized beliefs, and years of conditioning that have shaped how you experience desire, intimacy, and boundaries. And that's exactly why I created Pleasured, my 90-day coaching program designed to help you break free from these limiting beliefs, reconnect with your body, and experience intimacy in a way that feels natural, exciting, and deeply fulfilling. Imagine this. You crave intimacy instead of dreading it. You feel deeply turned on, not just sexually, but in your life. You and your partner are closer than ever, understanding each other's needs and desire without pressure or resentment. You feel sexy, confident, and fully deserving of pleasure. And intimacy is no longer about duty. It's about joy, connection, and real uninhibited pleasure. This transformation is possible. And in just 90 days, you'll have the tools, the mindset shifts, and the confidence to make it your reality. If this resonates, check out Pleasured because you deserve a sex life that excites and fulfills you. The link is in the show notes of this episode. Okay, lovelies. It was a slightly longer episode today, but I hope it was insightful. And if it helped, please share it with a friend who could also use the tips. I'll see you next week. Bye.